Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second part in our two-part webinar series around body-worn cameras. Thanks for attending today. We'll try and keep the session relatively short and sweet. It'll be 30 to 45 minutes, and that will include the questions and answer session. So a bit of housekeeping to begin with. All attendees will be on mute, of course, for the duration of the webinar. As I said, however, there will be a Q&A session at the end, and you can submit your questions for that in the usual way. We'll be sending out the slides from the webinar to all attendees, and a recording will be available on our YouTube channel as well, in case you've missed it or should you feel the urge to watch it again. The second part of our two-part body-worn video webinar will look in more detail at each of the body-worn video devices in the Airsys portfolio and expand upon how each of them can fit into that bigger picture we discussed last time out. We'll be majoring on the T8 predominantly during the session, and I'm sure the reason for this will become clear as we go through. So let's jump in. Body-worn cameras. As with everything we do here at Airsys, there are options available, and no two customers are the same, and the best choice for you or your customer will be governed by your circumstances and direction of travel. We touched on the need for these devices during the first part of our webinar series, but for those that missed it, we ran through some pretty alarming stats. And here's a quick recap for all of you. So in 2020, 7 out of 10 midwives reported abuse from women, partners and families. Again, in 2020, more than 3,500 attacks on ambulance and emergency care staff were recorded. In the last 3 years, attacks on bus drivers have risen 30% in London alone. And again in 2020, abusive incidents towards shop workers have doubled since the onset of the pandemic, with 42% of violent incidents taking place in store. So bear in mind that these statistics are in a year when we're supposed to be in lockdown and everyone's supposed to be at home. It's really quite a frightening level of abuse. And I highlight these areas as they might not necessarily be traditionally in sectors where we think of body-worn cameras being a necessity, such as police and security personnel, for example. So you can see that the need for these devices can't be understated at the moment, and the demand is growing by the day, it seems, with more and more organisations relying on these types of devices to ensure the safety of their staff and also resolve incidents quickly and beyond question. So Telo produced the T2, the T6 and the T8 body-worn video devices to assist in this space, as you can see in this slide here. So let's take a look at these options in a little more detail. Both the T2 and T6 can be used as standalone body-worn video devices using inbuilt storage to hold a shift's worth of recording and using the same docking solutions we discussed last time out. The DSPC variant is not available for the T2 and T6, having said that. So the physical docking stations are required, and that's the DS08 unit that downloads and charges up to 8 devices at one time and can accept up to 80 pre-authorized devices. It also has a built-in touchscreen PC that allows you to review footage and tag moments of interest. Then there's the DS20, which can take 20 devices charging and downloading at one time and accept up to 200 pre-authorized devices, again with that inbuilt PC and software installed as the DS08 variant. So both the DS08 and DS20 docking stations can be accessed via the internet, so you're able to download footage to your own network or secure cloud storage. The T2 and T6 also operate as a wired RSM, remote speaker mic, to an existing LMR radio and be included on that particular network. Or they can also attach to an LTE device such as the T590 Plus, T620, or even the screenless T300K and become part of those networks as well. Both options will record the radio audio as part of the body-worn footage, which, as you'll remember from the last time out, makes up part of that wider evidence gathering piece. Not only that, but if you have both the LTE and LMR devices in the network, the LTE devices can be bridged to the LMR device to complete the network. So at the end of the shift, the devices can be docked to the Telo docking station and the recorded files are then automatically downloaded and deleted from the device as mentioned. So it should be said at this stage that both the T2 and T6 are not currently compliant with the British standards, so the BS 8593, so they couldn't be used for evidence submission in the court of law. However, there are still plenty of reasons why the T2 and T6 can still be used. Of course, if there's sufficient demand for these devices, we'll look to work with Telo again and bring them up to standards, of course. Airsys can provide a list of supported LMR radios from a variety of manufacturers, including Motorola Solutions and Kenwood, should you require it. So moving on to the T8. The T8 LTECAM provides a body-worn video capability and can be docked in a Telo docking station such that recorded videos are automatically downloaded and deleted from the device, as with the T2 and T6 variants. As well as the body-worn video piece, the Telo T8 LTECAM is built on an Android platform and has its own built-in LTE capability that uses a Qualcomm chipset, which of course is US manufactured, and that can be quite a significant benefit for these kind of government tenders and large blue chip firm operations. Of course, when it comes to preload, it comes with preloaded with the body-worn video application, which along with its companion docking station meets the requirements of BS 8593 2017 Code of Practice for the Deployment and Use of Body-Worn Video, to give it its full name. You can find out more about that in the first webinar run in December, which is now available on our YouTube channel. We've worked closely with Telo to achieve BS 8593 compliance for the UK market, so these cameras and videos captured on them can be submitted as legitimate evidence in a court of law. So what can you do with the Android and LTE elements? Well, effectively, think of your everyday smart device on an Android platform, and essentially what you can do with this device is add applications to it that might be relevant to your business or industry sector, such as barcode scanners and things of that nature. But what really makes this device come alive is the addition of group communications as a service applications such as Airsys.Cloud. Given that it has its own LTE capability, this becomes a limitless mobile device, as we all know and love. And with the correct connectivity product in play, i.e. SIM card, you can have a roaming and resilient instant communications tool as well. So let's find out a little more about that. This part is relatively important. Whilst the Telo T8s will be preloaded with Airsys.Cloud GCAS solution, it's not wedded to that. Other platforms can be used. However, if you would like the device to do the following, you need to be sure that you have the correct platform in play. So let's just say, for example, with the Airsys.Cloud GCAS solution on the T8, it becomes your wide area instant comm solution for group and individual calls. BS 8484 compliant lone worker protection, meaning that alarms can be triggered by man down, impact detection, lack of movement, battery level, connect, disconnect, and more, ensuring the best safety available for those that are working alone. Quite often we hear a man down feature referred to as lone worker protection. It simply isn't the case. It's just one of the criteria required to fulfill a British standard solution, which of course we can deliver. The T8 will also track users' positions, both outdoor and in if required. Task management, you can create and receive tasks from the device, update them from the device, and even get live proof of delivery or signatures for task completion, such as guard tour sign off from a customer, for example. Which brings me on to guard tours. You can even receive and carry out guard tours via QR code, NFC, or GPS, and the guard tour points can even be displayed on the screen of the T8 using the map function within Airsys.Cloud. SOS calls can also be made from a dedicated SOS button, and you can force the device behavior using geofences, from changing channels to engaging lone worker protection. Video streaming can also be triggered remotely, and a dispatcher can view up to 6 device streams at any one time, so they get a multi-angle view of any event that's going on. So it really gives them a big picture. Then there's the ability to record everything that's taken place on the network, such as group and individual communications, messages, including attachments, GPS locations, and many more. That also includes app sharing. So while the body-worn video is taking place, you can key up on the device's radio. That conversation will also be part of the body-worn video recording, so there is that complete picture, which I'll demonstrate next. And of course, last but not least, night vision. It does support night vision as well. As with all things Airsys Cloud, and LTE devices, we are looking to remove the need for multiple devices and streamline response times in any situation, be it day-to-day operations or, most importantly, emergency situations. We've just got a quick demo that we'll run through now. It's just to give you an idea of how easy the device and the solution is to maneuver. So I shall go through that now. So here we have the T8 device in its inert state. Obviously it doesn't look like it, but the screen's obviously black. It's just in standby mode ultimately. But from here, what I can do is I can click on the push-to-talk button on the side and use it as my radio. So that works the same way as a conventional two-way radio would do, just simple push-to-talk on the button and away you go. But from this inert state, what I can also do is I can also slide my video recording switch up and actually trigger a body-worn video to start recording straight away. So what it's going to do is once I slide it up, it's going to give me an audible notification that the video recording has started, and it's going to fire up the screen and actually show whoever it is that I'm recording that they are being recorded. So if I slide it up,
video recording has started.
And we can hear that audible notification. As you can see, it's fired up the screen, and whoever I'm looking at can see straight away that they're being filmed, and that is the deterrent straight away that we've spoken about before. Once I'm happy that the video is finished, I simply slide the switch down again.
Video recording will stop.
It will tell me it's stopped, and that little green line that appeared at the bottom of the picture there, that just shows me that the file has been saved. So once I'm happy, I can put the device back in its inert state and I'm back to my radio, or if I need to trigger a body-worn video, I simply slide the switch again. Let's say though, for whatever reason, I've been in my Airsys.Cloud application, whether I'm looking at maps or whether I'm looking at various different users or making calls, whatever it might be, and I need to trigger a body-worn video. What I need to do is I simply press a long press on the physical camera button on the side of the device, and that will promote the body-worn video app to the foreground, as you can see, and I simply start recording.
Video recording has started.
So one thing that we've done, and thanks to the work that Airsys and Telo have done together, is the ability for the apps to actually mic share. So whilst I'm recording, I can actually still use my push-to-talk button and keep talking on that push-to-talk network. And what the app will do is it'll actually record both the audio coming into the device and the audio going out from the device, as well as the audio coming in from what I am recording. So you get a complete picture of audio and video being recorded. And of course, as we spoke about in the last webinar, that has a huge benefit towards the more complete evidence management system. Once I'm happy that the video is recorded, again as before, simply slide it down. You see that green bar appear at the bottom. That just tells me that the file's been saved. No problems, and I can put the device back in its inert state, and it becomes my radio once more. But if we know anything about Airsys.Cloud, we know that it's more than just a push-to-talk application. It can be lone worker protection, a BS8484 compliant lone worker protection, should I say. It can be your indoor localization, it can be your GPS tracker, it can be your task manager, it can be your guard tour facilitator. It can be any number of things. It's all things to all people, and that's the point in this T8 device, is to wrap everything up into one really smart device, an easy to use device, more to the point. So what I can do in this inert state, let's say I've got my lone worker protection engaged. Let's say for whatever reason I've been attacked out of the blue, no warning. The device can detect an impact and it will trigger an alarm. Okay, so it'll always give you a countdown when you trigger an emergency, just in case it's a false alarm for whatever reason. So in this state, once an alarm has been triggered following an impact or any kind of event-based alarm trigger or a physical SOS button push, what it'll do is it'll open the mic of the device up. So if I can't physically push that push-to-talk button, I can still talk and be heard, no problems at all. And that little countdown bar at the bottom tells me how long that microphone is going to be open for. That can be configured to whatever you want it to be. At the moment, I think it's 30 seconds, but it can be 60 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever you decide it needs to be. So once I'm happy that the emergency is over, I simply push and hold the middle of the screen, and it puts me back into my normal Airsys.Cloud application. So you can see that lone worker protection at the top there is green.
And that just tells me that my current home worker settings are all enabled and ready to go. So as we've demonstrated, if I get an impact or whatever it might be, whatever alarms I've got triggered to alert other users, that just tells me they're working. So there's multiple ways that you can trigger an emergency. There's the physical SOS button, as we mentioned. There's the soft SOS button on the screen itself, or there's the various events that are associated with lone worker protection. What we can also do is we can trigger video streaming back from an emergency. So if it's an event-based alarm, or if it's a physical SOS button push, you can trigger it to not only open the mic, but to open the camera as well. So you're streaming video back to the dispatcher or to other users, however you've got the systems set up. The other thing to show you is that obviously the screen real estate is quite small, but it's still very easy to maneuver. So I've got this favorites tab as my home page on Airsys.Cloud. It just gives me quick access to the tiles that I use little or most often, should I say. So let's start with the map. If I click on map, it's going to give me my location, but it also gives me the location of all the other users on the system. Again, if that's how you've got it set up to operate. What these icons will do in the event of emergency is turn red, so you can tell who it is that's triggered the emergency and where they are, more importantly. So if I click my back button there, it takes me back to my favorites page. As you can see, I've only got a few favorites listed, but it's very easy to scroll through them. If I go to users, that gives me a list of the users on the system. So you can see Mike's iPhone. If I select that, it's going to give me a couple of icons at the top. I've got the ability to do a direct call or an indirect call. The difference between the two is that a direct call will interrupt the person that I'm calling, regardless of what they're doing, so I can just simply push and talk to them, and they'll hear me regardless. The individual call is a call that requires answering. So if I call my iPhone, we're using this individual call, it will ring on my iPhone and I have to answer it as I would do any other call. The difference being is that it's just through the Airsys.Cloud network. So I've also got the ability to send a message. And again, much like SMS, you can send images, documents, video, whatever it might be, or simple text. So you've got all those options to send through this device as well. Again, to anyone who's on the Airsys.Cloud network. In your organization, obviously. So if I push the back button, that's going to take me back to my home screen. Again, I can scroll up and down. I've got the guard tools and task managers favorites here. I won't go into any detail about them. Obviously, we've covered them off in previous webinars. What I would suggest is that you have a look at those. They're really interesting. There's some really good ones about bolt-ons, so that takes you through the task management, indoor localization, things of that nature. But there's also a webinar about dispatcher and various other things as well. So it really gives you a good idea of how Airsys.Cloud is put together, how it works and what it can do for you. And essentially this T8 device is a smartphone. So it runs the GCAS platform or Airsys.Cloud platform and all the associated benefits thereof, as well as being your BS 8593 compliant body-worn video. So those videos, as I say, they're available on our YouTube channel, Airsys.Cloud. You can also access them via the Airsys.Cloud website, which is www.airsys.cloud. I would recommend giving them a watch, just because it will really give you that good overview of what Airsys.Cloud can actually do for your customers. So I didn't want to go into too much detail about all the things that you can do on the T8. It's fair to say that anything you can do with Airsys.Cloud will work on the T8, whether it's task management, indoor localization. It's got Bluetooth capability, it's got NFC reading capability. So anything that you can do with a smart device, you can do with the T8. But on top of that, you've got your BS 8593 compliant body-worn video solution as well. So it really is all things to all people in one pretty smart, easy to use device. And that was kind of the purpose of this little demonstration.
Well, it's good that you all know where I live and what my kitchen looks like. Got to love these COVID times. So moving on, other than the body-worn video capability, the other functions of the T8 are provided by the Airsys.Cloud GCAS platform, as we've just seen. We've covered the platform off in a fair amount of detail during previous webinars, and suffice to say, it's a fully functional hosted GCAS platform that provides all of the services listed above here, which you can find out more about, as we mentioned several times already in previous webinars and through our website. www.Airsys.Cloud. So body-worn video and GCAS can be integrated in a number of ways. There's maybe not the need to replace existing comms networks and adding body-worn video to your device portfolio, but more integrate the older technology with the new. So we can attach the T2 and T6 body-worn devices to existing LMR devices to operate as an RSM, as we mentioned earlier. Not only that though, we could bridge the LMR users into the Airsys.Cloud GCAS platform, so as you could turn your local area comms into wide area comms as well if the customer needs call for such a deployment. As we discussed already, the alternative could be to go for the T8 as your standalone BS8 593 compliant body-worn device, running the Airsys.Cloud GCAS platform to become your wide area comms, and all of those other great benefits we've already discussed in a single slick device. But there's also no reason why a mixture of all would not be an option. So adding new T8 users to existing LMR radios and T2 and T6 user networks, a hybrid of the two technologies works really well. And often you'll encounter companies that are very happy with their existing comms infrastructure, but would like to add some wide area users to the system as well. Incorporating the body-worn video element allows this at a minimal additional cost. So we mentioned a bridge a few times in that last slide. A.bridge allows us to combine the two technologies, LTE and LMR, to create both a mission-critical local comms network in the traditional radio users and a business-critical LTE network, all of whom can talk to each other as a group or one-to-one. We've got some more videos and information on bridging on our YouTube channel, Airsys.Cloud. It just shows you how easy it is to set it up, what it looks like, and also show you the ability of seeing on a single dispatch terminal both the LMR users and the LTE users. That's one of the great features of Airsys.Cloud as a GCAS platform. So finally, the last piece to mention, and something to be really aware of in this space, is the connectivity and the data required as part of that. So in order to get the best chance of connection, we use non-steered data roaming SIMs. This means that if a device loses a network for whatever reason, it will pick up at the next strongest. For example, if you are on EE and that network drops, the SIM card will simply search for another, say O2 for example, and that provides the GCAS element of the service with some resilience. All our SIMs are European-wide as standard. However, we have worked outside of Europe and asked for any such opportunities that you give us contact directly for a quote. So the data element of these is important when it comes to body-worn video. However, body-worn video on its own, of course, requires no data, as the video recorded is held on the standard 32 gig inbuilt storage. That's a sandwich van arriving, if anybody's wondering what that noise was. So yeah, the video is held on 32 gig inbuilt storage and then downloaded on the compatible docking station. But to run the GCAS platforms, data requirements we recommend start at around 500 meg, and then we tailor the usage based on the customer's requirements. So should you have a need for video streaming, your requirements for data will be significantly higher than 500 meg, depending on how often, of course, you make video calls or video stream. Again, this is where we urge you to talk to us about tailoring a solution for the use of the customer. We can support any data requirements in a number of different ways, and we'll always look for the most economic and suitable one for you or your customers' needs. So in addition to that, our SIM cards are whitelisted, so you aren't able to access data-hungry streaming services such as Netflix or Amazon Prime, so your security guard can't catch up on the latest episodes of Selling Sunset, for example, whilst they're supposed to be on shift. What we can do, though, is look to open up the whitelist. If you need access to emails, for example, on your LTE device, or if you have an industry-specific app that requires data, we can look at opening up the whitelist to support those as well. That's maybe a topic for another day. I think that just about wraps it up from me. And that is all for the body-worn video series. We now have demo packs that are in the final stages of being ready. They should be ready in the next week or so for the T8 devices. So please do get in touch with myself, Richard, or the sales team to get yours booked in. We do have limited numbers, so please do get in as early as possible. Otherwise, we'll book a schedule of when you can get them as soon as we can. So all that's left to say is thanks for attending. I hope you found the session interesting. maybe opens up a few doors that may have otherwise been closed. We do have a few questions. So at this point, I'll introduce you to our Director of Software Solutions, Richard Webb. If we don't get around to answering your questions, of course, we will follow up via email. So the first question for you, Richard, is the T8 camera reversible?
Yes, yeah. It also, when you reverse the camera, it inverts the image, so the app is aware of that. So the body-worn video app will actually turn the image the right way up, no matter which way the camera is pointing.
Okay, great. The next question is, will the T2 and T6 devices work with Android LTE handsets?
They do. They work with both LTE and existing NMR handsets. It's all in the cable. So as long as we know what device you want it to work with, we basically have to provide you with the correct cable to connect the T2 or T6 to the device in question.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question, what is the BS8593 status for the T2 and T6?
Currently, neither of the T2 or T6 encrypt files for storage on the device. So in that sense, they're not BS8593 compliant. That means they need to be used with docking stations, the DS08 or DS20 that has a software build compatible with the T2 and T6. We can work with Telo towards compliance on the T2 and T6, and then they could then be used with the same docking station software builds as the T8. But this is an evolving space. Essentially, all things are possible. It just may be that there's a little bit more work to be done to provide what's necessary.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, next question is, do the T2 or T6 have a screen? Good question.
The T2 doesn't. The T6 has a small screen on the back, so it doesn't show people being recorded that they are being recorded. In other words, it doesn't have the same kind of deterrent capability as the T8. But yeah, there is a small screen on the back of the T6.
And what are the data rates involved in video streaming? Technical question.
Okay, we have a number of options depending upon the resolution you require. The lowest resolution and therefore the lowest data rate, I think it's 100 kilobits a second or 7 frames a second. The high end, 30 frames a second, uses about 500 kilobits a second. We tend to find most people use the optimal rate, which is around 20 frames a second and 200 kilobits a second. But there is also a custom option. So if you want to play with the data rate and or the frame rate, that is also possible.
Okay, great. And can you clarify when a long press on the camera button is required?
Yeah, so in its inert state, all of the apps are available. So you press any button and what you expect to happen happens. So in the inert state, you can press push to talk and speak to people. You can slide the record switch and record video. Whilst the video is recording, you can still talk to people, as Mike said earlier. So in that sense, everything works as expected. However, there are circumstances, for instance, when you trigger an emergency where the push to talk application, the GCAS application, promotes itself to the foreground. If that happens and you want to also operate the body-worn video, then that's when the camera button comes into play. So if you are in an emergency and you want to start recording, you'll have to press the camera button and then slide the switch. And similarly, if you have started recording and want to trigger an emergency, you have to do a similar thing. You have to basically press the long press the camera and then slide the switch. So yeah, it's straightforward enough once you get your hands on it. But it's the challenge we had in producing the apps, getting the apps to work together, is to ensure that emergency once triggered, the emergencies are actually registered and not interfered with by other things.
Great, okay, thank you very much. That was the last question currently, so if you have got any questions, please do drop us a line. You've got my email address there on the bottom slide. Alternatively, if you've got Richard's address or the sales team's address, please do get in touch with them directly and we can answer any questions that you might have. So thanks again for tuning in. The T8s are already in stock and ready to go. Like I say, we've got the demo packs that are a week away from completion and ready to be sent out. And if you do have any requirements, obviously just talk to us. It's good to keep the lines of communication open. So please do chat to us about any challenges you might have in this space. But that's it from us for now. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time out.